Dude, I gotta tell you, man, one of the most amazing experiences, start to finish, ever. Like in terms of
amazing,
like everything about it. And I want to talk about each thing individually as far as like graphics, gameplay, story, atmosphere. They all are. I mean, I wanted to come up with like a ranking system for like different areas of games, and then we can give like a score to each game going forward to maybe just give it some kind of whatever that people can put together. So I don't know if we're going to do that in this episode or if it's just going to be something we do in the future. But like this is one of those games that would, I mean, it's going to get near perfect 10s for pretty much everything. And not only like for the time, because for the time it was revolutionary. Even now, you play this game, it feels like a game you could buy like in 2024 that just came out. You know what I mean? It's so polished. So where do you want to start, though? Do you want to start with the plot? You want to start with the graphics, the gameplay? Because there's a lot of things it did right and a lot of things it did for the first time that have kind of set a standard.
I think you go with the plot first.
Okay.
Because the plot of what happens, where it takes place, goes into the graphics.
Yes. And that's fair, because you're right, because it's all about that atmosphere. So do you kind of have the general plot summary of what's going on here?
Do I? Ask me how many notes I have.
How many notes do you have, Lou?
Like Rob Van Dam's Hall of Fame speech. Nothing.
All right.
So the plot of this is it takes place, and I'm not going to do a lot of Easter eggs. I could do a whole episode.
There's a ton of them we could talk about.
There's a ton of them. But the very first scene in this game is called back in Arkham Knight's very first scene. So this is one of the only few Easter eggs I'm going to do.
Okay.
So the beginning of the game is a cutscene, and you're in Gotham, and you eventually see downtown Gotham. When you're looking down the street on the left side, you can see a diner, and it's Paulie's. That's the diner, the same exact diner, that the fear toxin is released in the beginning of Arkham Knight.
Oh, that's right. There's that diner. And I've only played Arkham Knight through one time, so like it's on my list to go back and play it.
You mean Twisted Metal Arkham?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So it starts with Batman getting the Joker. It brings him to Arkham. The dialogue with the Joker because he's restrained is just it's hysterical.
Yeah.
He's asking for a cavity search. It's much more personable.
Yes.
Don't you think? You know, that's stuff like that. Just bringing him through Arkham, you get to see the vibe that this is not a state-of-the-art facility. It's dilapidated. You're introduced to the Warden, Warden Sharp.
Yep.
You're introduced to Commissioner Gordon, Frank Bowles, some Arkham security that come back later. You see Killer Croc. Joker escapes. Harley Quinn is there. And that's the kind of the premise in a nutshell is Joker's gang came out of Blackgates, which is another prison in the Arkhamverse and Gotham in general. And his troops are all there, his guys.
Yep.
So he's now in Arkham. He's free. And since Harley is a somewhat past employee, she has access. They get key cards from, I guess, the Warden and all that stuff. So Joker's letting all the inmates out. The inmates are running the asylum.
There it is. Yep.
Pun intended. And Batman, off he goes to defeat the Joker and some other very famous villains along the way.
And it's one of those where, compared to, if you've played the other Arkham games, you kind of know them as like these open world, like go anywhere, do whatever. Mm-hmm. This is the absolutely most contained story of the entire franchise.
Yes, it's a sandbox. You can explore, but you can't explore that much.
Right.
And the thing is, if you actually do go in order, even I'm going to assume if you're listening to this, you've probably have played this. If you haven't, thank you for listening. Play Arkham Asylum first, no matter what.
Yeah.
Once you go, unless you really, really like these games, like me and Dan do, a lot of people will play City and Night and not go back to Asylum, or even Origins.
Yeah.
Because this is the most contained you are, but at the time, it was perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
It's like playing GTA 3 after playing Vice City and San Andreas on PS2.
Yeah, well, I think that's I'll give an even more modern comparison. If you're a Mario gamer, it would be like playing Mario Odyssey, which is open world Mario essentially, and then going back to playing like Mario Galaxy or Mario 64, where each level is very tightly knit. This is a very tight game. It's a very, dare I say, claustrophobic game because there's a lot of, it's almost like Resident Evil and Batman, right? It's kind of, you know what I mean? That's kind of the vibe you get because you're essentially it's not a haunted house, but it might as well be because there's some jump scares and it's a creepy vibe, and I think of it as like, it's like the perfect Halloween story for Batman.
That is, we've discussed on numerous episodes, there's certain games, certain time of the year. Even though Arkham Knight takes place literally on Halloween, this is my Halloween game.
Yeah.
October rolls around, Arkham Asylum is the game I prefer to play.
And it's not a super long game either. You can beat it in like a couple of weekends if you know what I mean? Like
if you're an adult, a couple of weekends.
Yeah.
If you're a college kid, you could beat it on a weekend.
I was going to say, how long did it take you to beat it when you first got it back in the day?
Oh, jeez, I have no idea. Probably. I was at in-between stage.
Okay.
So not quite an adult, not quite a kid anymore.
So
young
like
adult.
Full-time job, but when you got home, gaming was not an issue for you.
Yes. It was okay. It was like go to the gym for like a couple days a week and then worry about what you're doing on the weekends. I would say it probably took me, a month.
Yeah, I think same here. I probably played it from like September to like Halloween-ish, so like about a month and a half, we'll say. Yeah. And that was it. So it's not a super long game, but it's long enough to feel like, oh, that was an experience, not that it was over too soon, right?
You're immersed. You could be fully immersed in this game.
100%. So it's, again, kind of going back. It's a classic Batman. I'm sure this was based off of some kind of story in the comics where this happened or something similar, right? Because
I believe there is a comic called Arkham Asylum Living Hell, which is the Joker taking over. Not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But I believe that's the case. But like you said, the ambiance, and that's going into the graphics now.
Yeah.
The ambiance of this game is the best out of the... It depends. Out of the 3 core games, if you want to count Origins also, it's still better than that. Every Arkham game of the 3 or 4 have one thing that they're best at.
Yeah.
So most people say that the ambiance of Arkham Asylum is the best.
Yes.
The storyline of City is the best. The hand-to-hand combat, emphasis on hand-to-hand combat, because you can't say combat because of the stupid Batmobile,
right,
is the best in Night, and Origins has the best boss battles.
I would agree with all of those, absolutely. And again, I feel like where Arkham Asylum is best at the ambiance but not best at the other things, you can't fault it because it was the first, right?
And they're not bad.
No, absolutely not. This is not a Sonic 1, folks, okay? This is
It's not. No.
As far as the OG...
No, it's not a Twisted Metal one either. See, both of the franchises we love have a bad first game.
Yeah.
But Arkham doesn't.
No, Arkham is it's just as replayable, and again, we can keep going back to that all day. So there's a ton of different areas. So you got the main kind of intensive treatment area, you got the medical facility, you've got the mansion, Arkham Mansion, you've got the gardens where Poison Ivy is, you've got the sewers, and then you've got like the penitentiary where it's like I think that's where like the electrified floors are, right? Like the high security.
Yep.
So, you've got, and within those different areas, you've got different kind of bosses and sub-bosses. And so I'm trying to think, who's the first boss that you fight in the game?
Well, do you want to say boss or... Because there's a couple different things you could say. Because there's a lot of, like, cameos by villains. Because, like, Zaz, for example.
That's true.
Zaz is not a villain, but he is a villain. Definitely a villain.
Yeah, he's not a boss.
They don't want that soundbite going out viral. Zaz is not a villain. Oh.
Zaz did nothing wrong. No.
Yeah, Zaz was framed multiple times. Lots of times. Zaz is not a boss, but he's the first, like, mainstream villain you see.
Right. And
you encounter.
He's essentially like the tutorial boss. Like, okay, we've taught you all this stuff, now use it on Zaz.
Yeah, go glide kick Zaz.
Go get it.
Yeah, so Zaz is the first villain. That's what I want to go with. I'm going to go with how you just encounter some of these characters. So Zaz is the first character that you encounter in Arkham Asylum.
Yes, and then I would say the first kind of traditional quote-unquote boss battle where it's like it's a setting for it. Zaz is kind of like a set piece, like, okay, you're going through and there he is.
Yes.
I think the first real boss battle has got to be Bane, right? Like you're fighting...
Well, you do fight a Titan creature.
Oh, before Bane, that's true. But that's not.
Yeah.
It's just a random whatever.
It's just a random guy.
As
but
far as like
it's
villains,
difficult.
and that's true. Yeah, but
Yeah.
like Bane's is like you have to actually use your surroundings and look around,
Yes.
and like there's so much more to it, and yeah, it's awesome. And every much like the later ones that perfected it, still in this game, pretty much every boss battle feels very unique.
They do, especially Poison Ivy later in the game.
Yes. So I mean, it's. I'm trying to think who else. Killer Croc. That's another one that's not really. It's a boss.
He's later in the game.
He's later, and it's a boss battle, but it's honestly probably the scariest boss battle. Where you're trying.
It is, and Asylum. It certainly is.
Yeah.
But that's when Croc is, and the thing is also they give a lot of these characters like side stories.
Yeah.
Almost like Aaron Cash is one of the head guards at Arkham, and he has like a hook for a hand because he got it chopped off by Killer Croc. So there's little things like that happen. And of course, as you're going through, one of the other characters is the Riddler.
Yes.
So you get more of a backstory about some of the villains and the characters by collecting Riddler trophies and solving puzzles and things like that. But the Killer Croc boss fight, I think, is probably the most enjoyable in the game.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
I think the most aesthetically pleasing from having 360 PS3 graphics is definitely Poison Ivy.
Yep.
But there is a sense of fear. Like it's not like Resident Evil kind of jump scares and blood and gore and things like that. But you're in the sewers and you're walking across those planks, but you can't go too fast. You have to have patience, which I don't have.
Right.
So if you got like the little meter, if you're going too fast, the meter will go spike and Croc's gonna come after you, and you gotta run and jump, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a good boss fight.
It's amazing. Super tense. What's another one that I was a huge fan of? So we talked about Bane already. Poison Ivy is great. Harley Quinn, I guess you could call it a boss battle. You don't fight her per se. You fight.
Yeah.
It's like a gauntlet fight against basically
Yes.
just fighting all the whatever. But I wanted to say something on the Riddler because the Riddler is he's a character that's around for every game in some form or another, and you've got these
Yes.
Riddler trophies that you find. I would argue, you said the atmosphere, this is the best. I would argue this is the best game to implement Riddler trophies because they don't go overboard. The only one I might
Correct.
make an exception for would be like Arkham City. Was fine.
Yeah, they really didn't make sense in Arkham Knight. It just didn't make sense. The city is wide open, and the Riddler is just everywhere.
Yeah.
I would say in Origins they're data packs because he's kind of blackmailing people, and that's the origins, pun intended again, the origins of the Riddler. He's not even the Riddler. He's just Enigma.
Right.
It's the foundation of it. But I do agree. I feel like Asylum had the best Riddler trophies. It makes the most sense if a Batman video game can make sense, or Batman in general.
Right.
Makes sense.
Because it was basically like in this one, it was like it gives you a clue, and then you go try to find the item and scan the. That's the thing. We'll talk about detective mode in a second because that again. Yeah. So hold on.
Changed gaming forever.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll get to that. But like, so in detective mode, if you like flash the screen, it's almost like it's not a camera, but like you can like take a picture, so to speak. And if you're taking a picture of the right item to solve the like, it'll give you clues. And a lot of times, it's like different props from different villains or whatever. Like I think the Penguin's umbrella is one of the clues that you can scan or whatever.
Yeah, Catwoman's goggles.
Which end up being like foreshadowing for future games, which I think is what made Arkham City that much better, is because you were hyped to see those characters because of this game.
Oh, we're gonna end with a big note about that.
Oh yeah. Oh good.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember. So like that was the one thing, like with the Riddler trophies, was the actual items. I remember in later games, like you could also like scan the question marks if you line things up, but that wasn't in this game, right? It was just the objects and like the actual trophies that you could pick up.
It was more geared onto that.
Okay.
Yes.
Because in the later games there was like, you have to line up a question mark in paint, but you can only see the paint in detective mode, and then you have to line up the question mark, and then
I think that was in this.
I'm trying to remember.
It's funny. I keep saying it's my favorite game of all time, but here's the thing. I know it's not in it. Like for example, like pressure pads or like things in sequences. It wasn't as crazy as that as it got in Arkham City.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Where that was for like more like legit puzzle solving, like you'd see in like an Uncharted almost.
Yes.
Whereas this one was definitely more like exploratory puzzles, not like, all right, move this pillar here or whatever to get to the trophy. You know what I mean? There was maybe a little bit of that, but I don't remember it being that much of a pain in the ass. And what's funny is when you get all the trophies, like there's no boss battle. Like what happens? Literally, like you get them all, and you finally like decode wherever his encryption for his like phone line is coming through. So like he's all right, cool. I just reported you to the police, and then he gets arrested while he's on the phone with you. Like that's the ending of the Riddler subplot, which I thought was hilarious.
Yes.
Another thing that I remember from this game, but not in the others, is remember the Joker teeth? As far as like collectibles,
I do. Yeah. They kind of guide the way, and they give you experience points.
That's what it was. It was like you get XP. So because that's the other thing is like you level up your character and like unlock different moves and upgrade different stats, which is kind of like it's like a sort of RPG in that sense. But it's also like, oh, if there's teeth here, I know I haven't been down this hall because there's a lot. I will be honest. There's one thing I can maybe fault it for is that the atmosphere is creepy and certainly some areas felt very unique, but there's also a lot of areas that feel like kind of samey. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to tell the difference between a medical treatment hall and like the penitentiary hall and the intensive treatment. Like, some of those kind of bleed together. So if you're trying to go backtrack and go, oh shit, that area that I couldn't get to before, where was that one vent that I saw?
Yep.
And so you got to kind of remember. So the Joker teeth can kind of help with stuff like that.
Yep, absolutely. The Joker teeth guided you along the way. It also showed you where to go. It showed you kind of where some I don't want to say villains, that's the wrong word. Just generic bad guys, the escapees were, and sometimes also where collectibles were.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing is this game made you want to go explore every inch of Arkham Island. Like,
oh yeah.
Like even on my first playthrough, if I didn't get like at least, I think I probably had at least 95% complete. Like I wanted to go out and find more. And I remember after the first time playing it, the final boss battle with Joker, which we'll talk about, there's like fireworks going off, and that's how you know, like, all right, it's the end game. If you want to go fight him, that's it. Like, I didn't know that my first time through, so I finished the game before finding everything because I hadn't realized. But the second time I beat it, because I've beaten it twice, I was like, no, I'm not going to touch that until I found all the Riddler trophies. I'm going to go look for other... Because at that point, I think you have a map that shows the location of the stuff you missed.
Well, you can pick up Riddler maps along the way. They're not given to you, but you could find them pretty easily.
Them. And so it's funny because I would almost argue, I know this is not a genre you're as familiar with, this is almost like a 3D Metroidvania, where you have to you use ability, you upgrade your abilities to then go back and backtrack to access new areas to either continue the plot or find hidden upgrades and things like that, and in this case experience points to upgrade your arsenal and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about detective mode, because this is one of the coolest features of any game and really hasn't been replicated in any competitors since then, because it's kind of a Batman thing, so who else could really replicate it as far as other superheroes go? You know what I mean?
Believe it or not, the only other game I really recall it taking place in was when they redid the Tomb Raider games.
Oh, really?
She had like a hunting mode.
Oh, that's right, which was basically a ripoff of detective mode. But
yes,
at least
it didn't last as long though. Like
no.
She would be able to do it for like 2 or 3 seconds, and that would be it.
Well, and the thing is, too, at least with Batman, it makes sense because, like, he literally has gadgets to make him, like, see through or whatever, or sense, like, infrared or whatever. That's what it was. And again, that's something that only got better with the future games. But, like, the fact that with detective mode, if you were lost and needed to find your way around, like, that was the perfect way to, like, find, like, objects you needed to interact with or whatever, because they would always be colored like orange, right? In like
yes,
and
the vents would be orange or something like that, or a pipe you needed to interact with, or something that you knew that you could go through. It would just be glowing in orange color.
Exactly. So like, and I think the thing was, I can't remember if this game did it, but I know in the future ones, like, you couldn't just cheese your way through the game and leave it on detective mode. Like, if you entered into something, like, it would turn off every once in a while. You couldn't leave it on to do other things, I remember.
Yes.
I think. Or maybe that was, like, future games.
Yeah, but you could just switch it right back on.
Right, well, and that's the thing. Yeah, you could turn it right back on. But again, like, the first thing I would do when I walk into a new area is I would always flip on detective mode and go, okay, what are some, like, let me scan the walls, let me look for objects. Joker teeth would show up orange. Or no, actually, did Joker teeth show up orange, or did they not? I'm trying to remember.
I don't think they did, because they didn't.
No.
Yeah.
there's certain things that wouldn't, but I know certain, like I said, certain things, like definitely like the vents or like the gargoyles that you could swing from, which another
Correct,
cool
yeah.
feature, because we haven't even talked about the combat in detail yet. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Holy,
And the guns too, guy
with the armed guards and the yeah. So detective mode essentially just helped you, like, again, like they say, feel like Batman, right? It was the ability for you to go in and like just look around for shit and find stuff that you couldn't find without being a detective, right? So that was amazing, but it's incredibly useful for, you know, obviously interacting with objects, but it's a fantastic way, because there's two, you know, let's talk about the combat, because there's essentially two combat situations you're in most of the time. One is the straight up, like, you're surrounded by guards, let's go ahead and just let's beat them all up, and then there's like the stealth one where you got to take them out one by one. Which one do you want to cover first? Because I think both are incredibly important to.
Well, I think you start with the basics of I'm surrounded by guards, and
because that's how it is in the
blocking-
game too. Yeah.
Yeah, the blocking in this was revolutionary also, and that, to me, that was. I mean, I can't pinpoint one thing, but I really do think the combat, because at the end of the day, it's a video game.
Yes.
And you can have the best storylines, the best graphics, the best voice actors, but if the combat sucks, who cares? It's still a video game.
Right. Yeah. And
if the gameplay is great and everything else is not that wonderful, you might be able to look past it.
Yeah, I would agree. And you know what this combat reminded me of is it felt like, as far as Batman goes, watching like the Christian Bale Batman movies, where he's all about that hand-to-hand combat. And I think they took a lot of inspiration from that. But it's essentially like, I read somewhere that like when they were developing this game was in development for a long time. Like I think over 2 years. I think originally they were looking at it like almost like a rhythm game, where like you had to like tap the buttons at the right time to get the flow of the combat. And so they kind of that's kind of been retained in the final combat system that we got, where literally, yeah, you'll see, and you can turn this off, but like you'll see the lightning bolt flash over a guy. That's when you hit the Y button to like counterattack him, and then you start pounding on him, and then another guy comes on you. Oh, hit Y again. You automatically jump over to him. So it's not like a simulation combat where like it's kind of clunky. Like it's realistic enough to look awesome, but then like it's also automated enough to make you feel like a badass.
Yes.
And a very accessible badass. Like you don't have to be super good at combat games to be a good Batman fighting whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you've got those, and of course you can upgrade your moves to do different power attacks and like throw batarangs and all kinds of shit, which again in the future games gets upgraded even more. So that's all well and good as far as like the general melee combat. If you're in a scurry or whatever, what's the word? Skirmish. There's the word. There you go.
There you go.
But there's also another area where like you'll come into an area and you'll see guards patrolling around, and Batman basically says like, I can't take these guys head on; they'll fuck me up. Like I need to save.
Actually, his exact words, I can't attack them head on, it'll be a suicide.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So what do? You got to sneak around. So that's the other thing. So Batman is comprised of essentially 3 different things in this game: detective mode, stealth mode, and combat mode. That's I think that's kind of the best breakdown of how you play as Batman in this.
Yep.
So stealth mode, again, you're sneaking around behind walls. With detective mode, you're able to kind of see through walls to see where some guys are, which give you a big advantage. So, like, you know not to walk a certain way if they're patrolling. It's also a great way to see walls that are, like, punch through. Like, you can punch through some walls to, like, pull guys in. And it's just, all in all, it's wild. Because at first, when you show up to an area and they don't know you're there, they're just walking around like, yeah, I'm waiting for the freaking bat. Or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Holy crap, it's the freaking bat.
It's the freaking bat! Actually, I think that's from Arkham City. But
I think so,
anyway, the point is, you start off, they don't know you're there. Now, what's really cool is, let's say you take a guard out or two, you either knock them out or you like hang them from the ceiling, because that's something you can do in this game. Now, all of a sudden, when the guys see that, like, they start to freak out and they start to like just run around frantically. And at that point, you're like, okay, I got this. You can see. Did you know that? I think it's in this game. Can you monitor their heart rate too, so you can see when they're like scared versus calm?
Yes.
Which I don't exactly know the point of, other than the fact that, again, like, you know that they're freaking out, so maybe they're not going to be paying as much attention to you, or they're extra alert or whatever. But like, I would always, anytime I got into an area where I wanted to take out guys one by one, like, I always, like, and tell me if you ever did this, just out of curiosity. If I ever got caught by a guy and they shot him and they found me, I would like restart the area and try it again to try to get like a perfect run. You know,
Yep.
didn't do anything. It didn't like unlock anything for you. Maybe a trophy, but like other than that, it was just like no, god damn it, let me try that again. I know I can do it, and you wanted to keep trying it, not because it's like yeah, I could like kind of brute force my way through it, and there's no penalty for it. But I wanted the satisfaction of knowing that I took everybody out and nobody knew I was there.
I was the same way. You want to be a perfectionist.
Yes.
And do it to the best of your abilities. And later on in games, they have those challenge modes where you're trying to clear the rooms as fast as possible.
I'm trying to think, did they have that in this game? Because they had like a challenge mode for like a gauntlet where you fight people in like different groups, but like was it?
Yeah, but it wasn't as big as they eventually got.
No, it became its own thing. It was almost like, you know, not that you didn't play this really, but like Metal Gear Solid had the VR missions, which were very similar, like just sneak through, don't get caught, collect this, collect that. It's very similar to that. So, yeah, the stealth mode in this game was something that there had been stealth games before. Like I said, Metal Gear Solid, Splinter Cell on the Xbox. I feel like this game was stealthy enough to feel like you're being stealthy, but like forgiving enough to be like, okay, let's move things along. It is Batman after all. You're not playing as a random guy in a war zone or whatever. You know what I mean? So I think those are the three kind of main gameplay modes, right? Am I missing anything? Because there's no Batmobile. The only other thing I guess is like the grappling hook when you're outside, but like that's just kind of part of.
Yeah, and the gadgets, you know, the batarangs, the explosive gel, things like that could be used in combat.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, let's talk about those for a second because yeah, this was. I mean, like any Batman game, you have gadgets. Even like the Nintendo one back in the day, you could get different upgrades, for better or for worse. So you got the Batarang in this, which is basically just like a standard like ranged weapon to knock people out. The Bat Claw, which is I think multi-purpose, at least in later games. So you're using it to like grapple to like ledges and like explore. But then can't you also grab people with the Bat Claw, or is that in a later?
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
In this game you can too. And so you're almost like Scorpion throwing your spear, going get over here, and you're pulling them back toward you. You can knock them out. Yep. And then you've got the explosive gel, which is used to take out like weak walls, which you can see in detective mode.
Yep.
And then you can spray them, which again is you know, behind those walls will be like unlockable. Sometimes you have to go through them to progress the story, but a lot of times it's just to find cool little unlockable like Riddler trophies, for example, things like that. Any other gadgets? I'm trying to think.
What's it called? The thingamajig.
The thingamajig. Oh yeah,
I'm doing it. When you have to, I'm doing it. The motion to my hand of my hands to dance.
Is it like where you're wiggling the joysticks with the thumbs?
Yes.
And then it's like to unlock the locks or whatever like that. You're trying to like
yes.
like hack. It's like a hacking device basically.
Yes, the hacking device.
And then
see, I was going like this, and you
I
got
did.
it.
I could see your motions there, and I love it because it does. Because you use the joysticks on the controller and it moves it with the thumbs. I always thought that was kind of cool. You know what I mean? And then there's the zip line, right? That's I think exclusive to this game.
No, it's in the others, but it's probably used the most, I feel, in this game.
Yeah, because there's certain areas that, like, for example, there's I think it's going into the greenhouse. Greenhouse. There's like an electrified. What the hell's wrong with my voice tonight? Like an electrified floor that you can't walk across, so you have to zip line across. And so until you get that object, you can't go in that area. So it's kind of like a gated off. You know, that's where that Metroid kind of feel comes in. You're like, oh, that area I can't get to. Yeah, I don't have the right upgrade to do it. And then you're like, oh, shit, I remember. And then you start thinking, oh, what other areas did I miss that I knew I could probably get to if I had a zip line? And so you start going back and trying all the other ones. And sure enough, 9 times out of 10, you're finding another trophy or whatever. And it kind of, you know, snowballs from there. So I'm trying to...
One last thing about gameplay.
Yeah.
Before we potentially move on to the villains and just go through them and how they were, you know, how they were presented in various forms of this game, is we talked about the hand-to-hand combat. We talked about the stealth. We need to talk about Scarecrow.
Oh yeah, because that in and of itself was it's a whole separate, because it's not really related to the plot of the. It's a total side plot.
It's a side plot, but it's kind of messed up.
It's insane.
Do you remember you go into the morgue?
Oh yeah, you go into the morgue
and he sees his parents.
Yeah, he's
in the body bags.
Well, because
he opens up one, then he opens up the other, and it's Scarecrow, and out he comes. And then as you're walking through the asylum, sometimes he gets the images of Crime Alley.
Yes,
start to flash. So that's the ambiance.
Well, that's where like the
earlier.
horror game. Well, because that's what happens is you get attacked by Scarecrow. He ejects the fear toxin into you, so then you start to.
And you're fighting it.
Yeah, and you're starting to hallucinate it. And exactly. And I'm trying to think, does he have to find a cure in this game like he does?
That's why he goes into Killer Croc's.
That's what it is. Yeah.
It's for he's fighting the Titan because people are getting infected by Titan.
Yeah.
He's been affected by excuse me, I can't talk now either. Being affected by Scarecrow. So eventually he goes down to Croc's lair to get this plant. Of course, only grows where Croc is.
Of course, yeah. That's
But the Scarecrow stuff. Talk about there is some big stuff at the end of the game.
well.
But the Scarecrow
Yeah.
mission was foreshadowing into Arkham City, which they really hint about, and that takes another step into Arkham Knight.
Yes.
But it started here.
Well, and not only that, we didn't even touch on the fact that like once you get injected and you're walking around, like I swear to God, at least once I thought I broke my Xbox. I thought
Yes.
because like the game glitches out and you're like, what the hell's going on? And then all of a sudden it like resets. You're like, oh shit, did I just lose all my progress?
Yes, because you get brought back to the beginning of the game, and the Joker is bringing Batman to Arkham Asylum.
And then you're like, oh shit, okay, this is kind of cool. Yeah. So and then so like,
which is a great metaphor. I shouldn't say a metaphor. It's a great
it's like
image.
It's like a parallel.
It's great imagery.
Yeah.
Of there's been a number of villains that have said throughout the past in Batman's universe that I'm only aware of because as an adult I've only really started to read Batman's comics. Is he's just as crazy as those guys?
Yes.
But he's on the right side of the law.
Yeah.
He is crazy for all intents and purposes. Bruce Wayne should be in Arkham Asylum.
Yes.
He's out of his mind.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't cross that line, doesn't create crime or do crime.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting that one of Bruce Wayne's fears was he's just as crazy as the Joker and Scarecrow and Harley Quinn and all these maniacs.
Yes.
And he's being brought to Arkham Asylum.
Yeah. Well, there's I forget which comic run it was, but like I think it was the Joker that said like, you're just one bad day away from being me.
Are you sure about this?
Yeah,
And it's
true.
it's very true. So you got that messing with you, and then throughout like the game as well, you go through these like little mini like side missions where it's almost like a platformer, like a side-scrolling platformer, Scarecrow levels. And you know what they remind me of for some reason is like, does he give you like Freddy Krueger vibes?
Oh yeah, because his injection is different than in other forms of Batman. Typically, the Scarecrow throws a gas.
Yeah.
Like he did in Batman Begins,
Yeah.
like he did in the animated series. It was him throwing like vapor,
Yep.
a gas in your face. Here, he's literally has the Freddy Krueger hand.
Yeah.
Only one of them. I'm looking to my left of my statues and action figures for reference.
Yep.
So it is only one. It's his right arm.
Yep.
And he has needles, and he literally stabs you.
Yeah, and ejects
With 4 needles, and then it's directly into you.
Yeah, so he injects the fear toxin right into you, and so that's what he does to start. And then when you go in these little like side-scrolling, like platforming levels with Scarecrow as like in the background, he's like super huge, and like the levels are all weird and twisted. It literally like I know
You gotta fight skeletons and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I know you're not like I don't think have you ever seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies?
No, I haven't.
So like it's literally like it's that vibe of like he's like the puppet master controlling the entire world that you're in and messing with you, and you got to wake up, you got to get out of there. It's fantastic. And again, I don't think you ever fight Scarecrow per se, right?
No, you don't. You just get to the end, shine the light on him.
Yeah,
and you eventually overcome it.
You overcome it, and then you take him out, and he's gone. So it's not really a boss battle, but it's a villain. It's a villain story or subplot, or I don't know what you'd even call that, because there's like
I mean, it's in the grand scheme of things. I mean, yes, the Joker is the most important because it sets up Joker sets up 2 games.
Yep.
Actually, 3 games, all 3. But the Scarecrow sets up Arkham Knight in this.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Because Batman is freaked out by him. Like, he is afraid of Scarecrow.
Yes, and Scarecrow does come back. He obviously didn't die. So he comes back in, Arkham Knight. So, you want to, I mean, are there any villains or battles, like boss battles, you want to touch on? We've kind of covered most of them.
I think we did. We discussed the quickies with Harley and Zaz, and then you have the boss fight of Croc. The big ones are Bane, Croc, Poison Ivy, Scarecrow. I do consider Scarecrow a boss.
Yeah, no,
and then obviously Joker and some Titan villains. But I think we could go through the actual villains that you do see, and just whether we like the presentation of them or not.
Yeah, that's fine. So I mean, we'll start at the beginning. So with Zaz, It's obviously very brief, but I think it serves the purpose it needs to.
Yeah, I mean, he is like the quintessential Arkham Asylum inmate. He's out of his mind. You see him again in City, and he's kind of a jobber,
Yeah.
so to speak. Like, he's no...
I don't think he's ever been a credible threat. I don't think he's ever main evented a comic run. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think there's probably a good comic here or there where he's... I feel like he's more of a detective version of Batman villain
Yeah, like as far as
than hand-to-hand.
Well, that's the thing is you think of different Batman villains and like which one, like if you're going to engage one of those three pillars of Batman as far as like brute force, detective, or like stealth or whatever, or gadgets and like outsmarting.
Yeah.
Like which one would it be? I would say he's definitely more like the classic like detective story. Like for example, the new Robert Pattinson, The Batman. You've seen that, right?
Yes. Yes.
He is a character that I feel like could absolutely be a main or sub-villain for one of those movies in that universe.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Well, in City, he's the telephone villain.
Yes.
Like the phone rings, you got to race to the phone, get there, listen to him, try to track his location. It's absolutely perfect kind of mission for a villain like that.
Yes, and it's the most like realistic villain, or at least one of the most, because he doesn't have superpowers. It's not outland. He's literally just
He's just out of his
he's
mind.
a serial killer that carves his deaths into his body. Like that's
Lovely.
in the scheme of things, that's not that unbelievable compared to some. Other,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know.
Yeah.
I know. Which is messed
Yay.
up. Okay, so from Zaz, you move on, and then what did we say was next? Was it Bane who was next?
Well, I was just gonna. Yeah, you could do Bane. This was Bane in his ultra form, and ironically, out of the 4 games, this is the only one where you really see him. He's not in Night. In Origins, he doesn't really have his venom yet. Maybe he has it at the very end, but
well, he has his venom, but like he doesn't get the Titan venom. This is where like the Titan. So I tell you, I'm not a huge fan of the Bane in this game.
Okay,
and I'll tell you why. And I think I only appreciated this later. So like, my first impression of Bane was Batman and Robin, which is really sad.
Bane.
Exactly. And so then when I played this game, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, this is what Bane is supposed to be. He was just lumbering giant that just runs around trying to just bash your face in like the Incredible Hulk or something. It wasn't until after that I decided, well, let me just read up on Bane. No, Bane is like this badass criminal mastermind who also can just like outmaneuver and physically best Batman. Like, you don't get that Bane in this game. So I feel like
you get it in Origins.
That's what I'm saying, but you don't get it in this game. So like, as far as his presentation, I understand why they did it, especially for the story and the fact that he's like got this rage chemical in him that's more than just the venom. It's the Titan.
Yeah.
It's obviously the venom is what makes Bane big and bulky. What is combined with it to make the Titan drug? I forget.
It's basically Joker is blackmailing one of the doctors at Arkham to come and create this new serum that he could use for an army.
Got it. Okay, and that's I think what Bane gets infected with, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and so that's why he's like super rage bulky.
But they explained why in Origins why he's like this. Why it's essentially the venom that he is taking messes with his head. Because in Origins, Bane just does find out, like you said, he's a great fighter and he's super smart. In Origins, he finds out that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Yes.
And destroys the Batcave, nearly kills Alfred. It's during their final battle that Bane kind of loses his marbles and becomes Bane.
Yeah. So that being said, having never played Origins before, when you first played this, what were your thoughts on like Bane and that whole?
Again, I was kind of like in your shoes. Like, I didn't know too much other than the TV show, and he's the guy that broke the bat.
Yeah.
Like, I know that. I don't know the details of that comic, but everybody knows Doomsday killed Superman, kind of, and Bane broke the bat. He broke his bat.
Yeah.
So it was what I think most people knew about Bane. What I did like about this game was, if you look at the big villains, they're villains that people know.
Yes.
People know the Joker. People know Poison Ivy. People for the most part, they know Bane, and this is the Bane they know.
Yep.
And Harley Quinn, people know. I think the only real, like, Scarecrow, people know. The only one that people really didn't know was Killer Croc, but they did such a good job presenting him that if you had no idea who he was, within 30 seconds of seeing him come up that elevator in the beginning of the game, okay,
Yeah.
that's horrific.
Yeah. And you know what I think is amazing is that, because you're right, there's so many villains that most people know, and yet there's so many Easter eggs of other villains that you will see in future games that you don't see in this game.
Yes.
And like, yeah, I don't feel like I missed him. Like, I mean, it would have been awesome to have Two-Face and Mr. Freeze and shit, but like they wouldn't have added much more to the plot. I feel like the villains they had, there was plenty of them. You think about it, I'm looking at the list. There's a decent amount, and most of them are like, yeah, they're pretty mainstream Batman villains. Like, I think that also just goes back to, again, why Batman has the best rogues gallery is because there's so many of them. So, okay, Killer Croc, I agree. Or, sorry, Bane, and then Killer Croc is next. Again, I think, honestly, I thought of Killer Croc, honestly, my comparison was the animated series, where I felt that he was more of like kind of like a comedic comic relief character in that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like when I saw him,
half man, half crocodile. Like, yeah.
and he was like stupid. He just reminded me of like Bebop and Rocksteady. You know what I mean? Like he was. I'm not gonna do it. You're waiting for me to do the voice, aren't you?
Yeah, boys.
I'm gonna fight the Batman. So, but that's not the Killer Croc you get in this game, right? Like this is like this guy is scary, dude. Like, and he looks like a crocodile.
Yes.
That's the other thing. Is like he looks like way more intimidating, and like he's genuinely terrifying. And so again, I've never read a Killer Croc comic for Batman, so I don't know if that's the norm or whatever. But like, yeah, I thought he was portrayed wonderfully, like a very scary boss.
Yeah. And again, in Origins, they give you he's kind of in between where you see him in the animated series, and where you get in Arkham Asylum. Like he's transitioning, like he's becoming more monster than man.
Right. Yeah. So he's just continually, I don't know if evolving is the right word or whatever, but yeah, he's changing. There you go. That's sure. Yeah. So yeah, Killer Croc, fantastic portrayal all around. So far, the only one I've had a personal problem with is Bane, and that's really more of a hindsight situation where I now know what Bane could be. I mean, Harley Quinn, technically you get her next in that whole sequence with the gauntlet. I don't know, I thought she was fine. I mean, she was dressed as a hot...
Yeah, she's Harley Quinn. She's supposed to be out of her mind and loopy and fighting for Mr. J's attention. I had no issue with it. I thought it was a good representation of her.
Yeah, agreed. And then you got Scarecrow. We really touched on him, but we agree, like, fantastic for many reasons.
I think it was such a really, really good representation of that, and better than the animated series.
Yeah.
And this is after Batman Begins.
Yes.
I think this was even better than Batman Begins.
Oh, I agree. I think Batman Begins Scarecrow was kind of lame. I mean, he was fine. But
dare I say, in terms of media,
this is the best version of Scarecrow.
TV and show.
Yeah.
This might be the best version of Scarecrow.
Yeah.
And then get into Arkham Knight, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Bad. Dark.
Well, we'll do what in 10 years from now if the show's still going. We'll talk. We'll talk Arkham Knight. Yeah. So Scarecrow. I would argue like if Joker is like the final boss, if Joker is the M. Bison of this, I would say Scarecrow is the Sagat, right? As far as like the sub boss. What are your thoughts?
That's tough because it could be Croc also.
Yeah, but Croc, once you deal with him, like, I don't know, like it's only in the sewers that you really have to deal with him. Scarecrow is like throughout the entire asylum.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like Scarecrow's whole thing, and the only reason you fight Croc is to stop Scarecrow. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, I think Croc's down there. Croc's at most, I'll give him Balrog status, in Street Fighter bosses. Okay, Poison Ivy. We haven't really talked about her at all, but she plays a pretty big role in this.
Very, very true to the character, and this is where I really learned a lot about her.
Yeah.
Because my only real exposure to, again, the animated series was great, but I watched it as a kid. I really didn't go too deep into it.
Yeah.
And then, Batman and Robin comes out, and she talks like she's from the 1950s all the time when she's talking.
Right.
Which has an Arkham Asylum in it, which is ironic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's all bright and colorful, and this is definitely not.
No.
And Jesse Ventura's not in it either.
Wait, Jesse Ventura's in Batman and Robin?
Yeah, he's one of the guards in Arkham Asylum when they break in to get free.
Oh shit! I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Huh.
that's him.
Okay, all right, yeah. It's the second movie he starred with Arnold Schwarzenegger in.
Unfortunately, I mean, he looked great as Mr. Freeze,
Well, sure.
but then the dialogue started.
Whatever.
I didn't realize that she was such a great character.
See, and I still
She was-
don't because I haven't done much follow up other than I mean she was fine in this, but like I've never been a huge fan of Poison Ivy, so I'd love to get kind of your perspective on that.
They do touch on it in Batman and Robin, where she's meeting with Bruce Wayne, like at one of his benefits.
Right.
And she goes, "We need to do this and this and this to save the rainforest." And he says, basically, your ideology is great, but your methods are terrible. Like eco-terrorism is not the right way to do things.
Right.
It's to YouTube. The YouTube listings are going to be terrible. I'm talking about eco-terrorism and stuff like that. You want to blank that out.
Yeah.
The algorithm's going to love that. But that's what she is. She's her ideas are great, and we all want no pollution. We all want nature to thrive and be healthy, and no smog and dirty water and all this terrible stuff we have. But the way she goes about it is like a freaking moron.
Yeah.
She just destroys everything, and that's her journey throughout the Arkham series, and she gets her redemption in the very last game. But even in this, she's kind of helpful, but kind of deceitful, and that's, in a way, she's kind of like Catwoman. She kind of does what she wants,
Yeah.
but she's way more dangerous than Catwoman.
Well, because she can talk to the plants and like they can mess you up, and I think because there's different tiers of Batman villains. Like, there's Batman villains that are like evil and there's no fixing them, and like holy shit, they're just whatever. There's not a lot of those, by the way. You've got Joker and
Scarecrow.
maybe Scarecrow, and then like.
Let me look to my left.
Yeah. Well, I said like Hugo Strange maybe is another one. But then you've got characters that like are like almost like good people that are trying to do the right thing but doing it the wrong way, like Poison Ivy or like Mr. Freeze, quite frankly.
Man-Bat.
Sure, Man-Bat. He doesn't even know what he's doing. He lost control. And then you've got guys in the middle that like Two-Face and like
Riddler.
and Penguin who are like, yeah, they could be redeemable, you know what I mean? But they're dicks, you know what I mean? So anyway,
but Poison Ivy, to me, is one of Batman's most dangerous villains because she can just destroy anything.
yeah, that's
at any moment.
It's true, and that's absolutely true. I will almost say like she's almost like the Storm of like DC.
Yes, I was going to say Omega level mutant.
She's an Omega level villain. Yeah, whatever exactly. Okay, and so other than Poison Ivy, I mean, let's talk Joker. We haven't really touched on him much.
Which is ironic, right?
Yeah.
Great. I mean, this is... The thing is, when we talk about who is Batman from the 90s.
Yeah.
Or just 90s and 2000s.
Yep.
Is it Kilmer, Michael Keaton, blah, 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 blah. My answer is it's Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. That's my Batman and Joker.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to argue that.
That's what I grew up with. That's who I hear when I read the comics. That's who I hear when I read the, don't laugh, novelization of Arkham Knight. I actually read it.
Well, the story's good. That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just love these things so much that I've read. There was a book in between City and Night that I read also that involves the Joker. Riddler, not Joker. But great performance. The character is exactly what it should be.
Yeah.
I felt like Heath Ledger's Joker was too dark.
Yep.
With no ha. And the one back in the 60s, I think it was the 60s.
Yeah.
Adam West was too ha-ha, no seriousness.
Yeah.
I always felt Jack Nicholson's Joker was a good one.
Sure, I would agree.
both.
100%.
And this is the animated version of that.
Well, that's
where
what he was
can
based
go,
off of back in.
Yeah, give me a good old cavity search.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes later, he's talking about how he's going to, like, rip somebody's arms off or something like that.
And it's believable.
Shoot him in the face.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
he's intimidating. Like, that's where, like, Cesar Romero from the 60s, it's like, nah, that guy wouldn't win in a fist fight with a preschooler. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Whereas, like, no, this one is like, dude, he's hilarious.
He's out of his mind.
He's out of his mind. He's hilarious, but like, God, I wouldn't want to cross that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like very few movies have gotten that blend perfectly right, like the animated series did. And again, we kind of said it at the beginning. This is essentially the animated series turned up to 11. Is how it felt to me.
a PG-13 animated series.
Absolutely. Which I think they've come out with several PG-13 iterations of Batman that are kind of in this vein. But it's exactly what you're getting with this. And that's just regular Joker, because at the end, spoiler alert, but Joker infects himself with the Titan drug and basically turns into like Incredible Hulk Joker, but he's still kind of coherent, right? Like he's not like totally mindless.
Fully coherent.
Yeah,
fully coherent.
So that's like, because that's what they're trying to perfect, right? Throughout the thing is like they're trying to figure it out, because like the other ones are like mindless. Like they need somebody who's smart and big, you know?
Yeah, because the first Titan thug you fight, it essentially dies, but just like overexerting itself.
Exactly. So you need one that's smart. So basically, he kind of does like a Professor Hulk, right? And then on the Marvel side, where he figures out how to control the Hulk and still have Bruce Banner's mind. And so that's essentially what he does. And I would honestly say, funnily enough, I feel like this battle is the weakest boss battle of the game, in my opinion.
No, it is.
It's not bad, but it's almost like, man, we've had so many cool boss battles that were ending with like almost like a trite like PlayStation 2 era God of War boss battle.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
No, you're 100% right. It feels like they might have been the first boss battle they made.
And that could be, and they maybe worked their way backwards, but it just didn't feel. It was fine. It wasn't offensive.
It got them. It got it done.
It got it
but
done.
It was nothing great.
No, but like it's like as far as like lumbering giants, like I preferred the Bane fight. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. It was okay. It wasn't as memorable as. And believe me, I want to do an episode on Arkham City if it makes sense, because you want to talk about boss battles. Like there's some amazing ones in it.
Oh yeah.
So, but no, like it was fine. And then you beat him, and then like the drug wears off, and you arrest him, and it's kind of the end. But you did mention there's some big stuff that happens at the end of this game.
There is. So the ending of the game, after you defeat Joker, you get to see that Scarecrow. So because Scarecrow gets taken out by Killer Croc.
Yeah.
But he does survive. You get to see him with the Titan formula at the end, floating in Gotham River. So Scarecrow's alive, which, again, if you know the series, he does come back. But the bigger thing is, I mean, that's pretty big.
Oh, yeah.
But the bigger thing is there is a hidden area in this game that legitimately nobody found. I don't know. I've read reports that it was 6 months. I've read some reports that it was a full year. I've heard some things because you're going back 15 years, so we didn't have the internet on our phones yet, kids. So you actually had to sit behind a thing called the computer. There are some mentions that it was debuted on. Remember, Spike TV had like the video game awards.
Yeah.
Like Spike TV was really big on like TNA wrestling, kids, TNA wrestling, and the video game shows. I've read some reports it was revealed there. I don't know exactly where the origins of this reveal came from, but I do know it was not found for a long time.
Okay.
Quick side 6 months, long side a year, and it may have had to been shown
because
to people.
I've never seen it actually. So what is it?
So let me get up the actual step by step, because I can paraphrase it, but I want to give it exactly.
Okay.
So this is a post on June 30th, 2010. And it's a post, and people are talking about it, and they go, I don't know, where is this? Can you tell me more information? So if you go into Quincy Sharp's office, that's earlier in the game, there is a wall that you have to put multiple of the explosive gel. And it's just a wall. If you put on detective mode, it doesn't light up.
Okay.
So the wall does not show you that there's anything there. It's just a regular dark blue wall like everything else in the game. You have to precisely put multiple of the explosive gels in, the exact spot multiple gels, boom, 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 and knocks down the wall. Knocks down the wall. You go into a hidden room. In that room, on the wall, are blueprints for Arkham City.
Okay.
So they had already in their mind, this is what the sequel is going to be.
All right. And there it is. And it took people forever.
And that's not, this is before you had random updates to games also. So this was not something that they, there's a patch coming out. Oh, we're fixing this and this, and we're putting in some of the secret too. Like, no, this was in the game. But nobody found it because, like you said earlier in this episode, when you put on detective mode, there's a wall I can go through, there's some vents I can go through, there's some Joker teeth or whatever.
And you're so focused on using that to do that you're not thinking that, maybe there is a wall that's not.
The only other time that something like this happens, the only clue to this is, the minimal interaction. Clayface is in this. Do you remember that?
He is, because he's dressed as Sharp, right? In the glass.
Yeah, he's like Gordon. He does Sharp. But when you go to scan what would be Clayface, even if he's in a human form, there's no skeleton. He doesn't glow orange because he's
right.
Clayface.
Yeah. That's right.
So that's why, you know what? I'm not going to give it away.
No. It's because we will touch on that in a future episode. So that's fair. Amazing. This is an amazing game. It is one of my favorite, not just Xbox 360 games. It's one of my favorite video games of all time.
It's a Desert Island.
It is a Desert Island game. Absolutely Desert Island game.
So how about a little behind the scenes?
Absolutely.
So apparently the rights were won by Rocksteady, a little company called Rocksteady, who became big, who's now little again because the Suicide Squad game didn't do
That's
very
right.
But I digress. They got the license in May of 2007, and the production started in September of 2007, and they got the writer of the animated show, Paul Dini, D-I-N-I, to do the original, screenplay of this game. They didn't want it to be, based on an already standing story. It was kind of its own. They said that the influence of the atmosphere of the game was two things. It was the story of, I was kind of close. What did I say? Arkham Living Hell? It was Arkham, a serious house on serious Earth was part of the game design. Also was the game BioShock, which came out in 07.
Absolutely. One
Great
thing
game.
I was going to say is the vibes, absolutely the same kind of atmosphere as BioShock in this game.
Yep. And then when you go and do things, like they said, it's be able to get your gadgets and go back, you would say, would you kindly go back to go do something in Metroid? Right. I was trying to do something creative. Would you kindly?
Yeah.
Which blew my mind. We could do a BioShock episode.
We will absolutely do a BioShock episode, 100%.
But all joking aside, it was designed to have elements of, it literally says in the article, like Zelda, like Metroid, where you get an upgrade, you get a gadget, you get a weapon, you go back. So that's just a little behind the scenes stuff.
Absolutely. So what I'd like to do also then is I try to post out on our threads page at Backwards Compatible Podcast to get any listener feedback or memories and whatnot. And so only got one comment this time around from our good friend Mark Ravisky, longtime listener of the show. Crusader 911 wrote in, Batman Arkham Asylum changed superhero video games. It was the last time I pre-ordered from Toys R Us. There you go.
Wow.
It was a birthday present from my wife. I replayed it recently. Perfect length of game, great mechanics, graphics were top notch, and the part that freaked me out the most was the Scarecrow scenes. So,
absolutely.
I mean,
100%.
it hit the nail on the head. It's like I said, it's the perfect length of the game. It's a perfect experience. It hasn't been. I use the term ruined very loosely, obviously, but it hasn't been corrupted by open world games where everything had to be open world. This one didn't, and it was amazing.
It still doesn't.
No, it absolutely does not. Because not everything does, and this one is.
Not every game needs to be as big as Red Dead Redemption
endless.
Or Grand Theft Auto. It doesn't have to be that big.
100% not.
I was fun, just touching on something kind of off topic for a second, but while we're talking about map sizes, talking to some friends at work, we're all in our 30s and 40s. Some people might watch out for 40s, but we were joking about how GTA on this era, 360, PS3, for our age group, we're young adults becoming real adults. It wasn't the easiest game to play because we couldn't devote as much time as we were able to in the PS2 games. But when the PS4 era came out of GTA and Red Dead, since you were able to quick start your game and off you go, how crazy would it be to like have GTA or Red Dead, a game like that, where it's like, well, what size of the map do you want? Do you want just what you need, or do you want everything? You know what I mean? Like, I don't need 15 blocks of just BS. Just let me get to my mission. So that's how this is. This is quick, simple, easy.
Yeah.
As the Arkham games go, they get bigger and bigger.
100% agree. All right, well, then in that case, let's talk about some other games you can play if you want to maybe, I don't know, scratch the itch. And, of course, I mean, I'd be remiss if not to say, as far as modern games, obviously Arkham Knight is I mean, it's in the franchise as far, and quite frankly, the Arkham Asylum and City and collection is available as well. Like, you can play all the
not Origins,
the only one,
though.
the only one that's hard to get a hold of, which I do have a copy thanks to you, is Arkham Origins. Other than that, pretty much every other Arkham game is playable on all modern systems, and I'm pretty sure PC as well. So
the easiest way to get Arkham Origins is if you have the PlayStation Gaming Pass.
Oh, you can get it on there? Okay.
You can't even download it, but you can stream it.
Okay.
You can stream it or go dust off your 360.
Well, or because it's a backwards compatible game, no pun intended. I can play that on my Xbox One, so that's which is great. So that's one route you can go. Obviously, the other obvious one, well, maybe not obvious, but I would say is the Spider-Man games on PS4 and PS5.
I agree.
Have there been any other superhero games that feel like Batman?
Can I get angry for a second?
Sure.
Okay. You know it won't scratch the
What's
itch?
that?
Stupid effing Gotham Knights will not scratch the itch.
I was going to ask you about that because I never played it.
No. It's garbage.
Okay.
It's okay. It's an okay game, but it's not Arkham. It's nowhere near Arkham.
Okay.
And it's very, how do I say this without upsetting the, it's just not Arkham. I'm going to take the high road. It's just not Arkham. If you've played it, you know what I mean. And you can probably hear the smile on my face. It's not Arkham. And then Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is not Arkham. And that takes place in the Arkham-verse. I played, we got the demo to play because I messaged WB Games and said we had a podcast. And we're actually approaching 15,000 folks on subscribers on YouTube.
There it is. All right.
Very close. So they gave us the pass. I played it. I couldn't, reveal any images, and I played it for an hour, and I'm like, this is trash. It's garbage. Yeah. It was great to reminisce because they actually go over the Arkham verse, but then you start playing the game. It's like, this is not what I want. I want Arkham verse games, and it wasn't it.
Okay.
So, there's a very rare things that will not scratch the itch. They're not going to.
So
it's a whole different animal.
What would the opposite of that be? Like a back scratcher scratches the itch. What would this be? Like a baseball bat?
This is a rash. You get a bad rash.
But you can still scratch that though. Like what device? Like a back scratcher scratches the itch. What would this device be? If it were
acid.
Acid. Oh, there you go.
Joker acid.
I like that. Okay. All right. Well, then, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go for it. At the beginning of the episode, I mentioned trying to start to implement a scoring system, and if it doesn't work out and we stumble, I'll just edit this part out anyway. Who cares? So here we go. I'd like to, going forward, every single game, and I'm going to put you on the spot because I didn't give you a chance to plan this. We're going to rank every game. We're going to give every game a score on a scale of 1 to 10 for different categories, those being graphics, gameplay, story, music, /sound. We'll put those together.
I'm not going to remember all this. Just
and replayability.
I'm
going to ask you all of them. I know them.
So am I judging it from when I was playing it in 2009-10, or am I judging it now in 2024 looking back at a game that's 15 years
You can
old?
do it either way. I'm going to leave that open to interpretation. So let's start with the gameplay. On a scale, out of 10 Batarangs, how many would you give Batman Arkham Asylum from a gameplay perspective? Either modern perspective or...
I'm going to do it now. Looking at it, trying to take off the rose-colored glasses, playing Arkham Asylum, and now what was the question?
Out of 10 batarangs, how many would you give the gameplay?
The gameplay. I would give it an 8.
8 out of 10. Okay.
Out of 10, because the mechanics are a little choppy when you're gliding, which is fun, but it definitely gets better as you go along.
8. I don't. That's what I would have said. I would have said 8. I'm gonna go ahead and round up to 8.5, just so we don't have the exact same number. Okay. So 8.5. All right. Out of 10 batarangs, what would you give the graphics?
Well, I've only been playing the upscaled one, but even looking at it, it was good for the time, but you could tell it's a little dated. But it's not terrible, so I would give it the original, not any of the HD collections, the original. And now in 24, I would give it 7.5.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and round up a little bit. I'm gonna give it an 8 because I feel like it holds up pretty well. Even the non-HD one, like it always did look very nice. Because I did play the I played the 361 on a big TV, and it looked better before the collections came out.
Yep.
Okay, so that's gameplay, that's graphics. All right, the story out of 10 batarangs.
Oh, story is a 9 out of 10.
Okay. And I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 because I feel like this is the tightest, in my opinion. This is actually the best story of the series, in my opinion. Okay, and then we've got music / sound effects, anything audio related.
I would give it a 9 out of 10 also. There was nothing in this that made me go, what's going on. Oh, by the way, my text tone when people text me is dun 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 dun.
Funny you mentioned.
It's the Arkham
Well,
bell.
if you're listening to this, you may have also noticed that's what I'm using for the transition after we say let's talk about the game. So there it is.
Oh, what you should do is that nigga Joker here.
I'll see if I can find that. All right, so out of 10 batarangs, what are you giving the music and the sound?
I would give it a 9. I think it's great.
I would agree. I'm going to give it a 9.5 actually, because I think it's got some of the best combat sound effects of like punching and beating somebody up. Just you can feel it with the sound effects.
Yeah.
All right, and then finally, I think the only other one I want to talk about is replayability. So like a game that you can go back and replay and be like, yeah, this is worth my time. Out of 10 batarangs.
9 out
9
of 10.
out of 10. Okay. What's stopping it, just out of curiosity, from being a perfect 10?
Arkham City exists.
Okay, so like if you were to choose one, that's going to be the one you're going to go to first. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. See, now if I'm on a desert island, I can't say, oh, I'll take the Arkham games. Like, no, you could take one.
You take it.
I take Arkham City.
Okay. I'm going to say 9.5 because I think I would just as easily pick up this one over the other ones, mainly because with the limited time I have to play games, this is one that I can beat faster.
This is my second favorite. It goes City, Asylum, Origins,
and then
Night.
All good games, but you do have a clear order there. Okay.
Yes. Definitely.
All right, well, then here we go. We're going to go ahead and tally up the results here. I'm probably going to insert some kind of cool drum roll in the meantime.
I could do like a brrrr.
Drum.
Beautiful,
Thank
Clark.
you, Clark. Okay, so here we go. 8 plus 8.
Fun fact, folks, Dan had to help his family with math problems today, and he said he wasn't good at it, and right now I'm stalling so he could add
All right, on a scale, well, I don't know what it would be out of technically. I guess out of a possible 100, this score has amassed an 88.
That's exactly what I would have given it. I would have given it like an 8.5 out of 10
This is
right
a
now.
B plus A minus game, and I would agree with that 110%.
It's an A minus. It's not even a B plus.
All
it's
right,
an A
so we'll
minus.
say A minus.